In Nigeria, the unsettling grip of insecurity has extended its menacing reach into the hinterlands for food production, particularly in the states of Plateau and Benue. With these regions historically serving as bread baskets, their current plight reflects a stark reality. Attacks and violence are not only claiming lives, but also threatening the nation's food security. Plateau and Benue, once teeming with agricultural abundance, now bears the scars of conflict as attacks on farmers and communities escalate. The repercussions are there, with food production plummeting and livelihoods being shattered. It is a complex web of factors, but insecurity emerges as a dominant threat, contributing up to 40% of the reasons behind Nigeria's food crisis. Repercussions of this negligence are felt acutely in Plateau and Benue, where farmers toil under the shadow of fear, unable to tend their fields without the looming threat of violence. In such an environment, productivity inevitably wanes, exacerbating an already precarious situation. Well, my guest is a partner, senior economist, SPM professionals, a friend of the house, Mr. Paul Alaje. Good afternoon, Dr. Alaje, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. A beautiful afternoon to you, sir.
Well, really, when we look at the entire situation in Benue and, of course, in Plateau, my question to you will be, considering this slight decline we saw in inflation rate, particularly food inflation, if this continues, what do you think would happen? And how would you react to the impact of this on food insecurity?
Well, to speak to the question directly, insecurity is an economic factor, and it also has economic implications. So if the incessant killings we have seen in Benue and part of Plateau, currently I'm on the Plateau, so to also have perhaps first-hand information of what is happening and be able to put data together regarding the impact of the insecurity, both on the Plateau and in the Benue. I can tell you that one, the relative reduction we have seen in the growing rate of inflation may be reversed. And you know that is not what you and I want. If the growth rate of inflation goes back to what used to be very high at about 24, 25, 30%, then we have a lot to deal with more in our hands. Not just to look at the number, to also look at the real impact in terms of absence of food. You know that Global Food Organization has warned regarding possible drought of food or absence of food in some African countries. Unfortunately, Nigeria was not exempted. So when we look at the impact directly, it has implication on our inflation, it has implication on joblessness, it also has implication on ability to farm by large number of farmers. And you know that these two zones are major zones for food production in Nigeria. They are both in the Middle Belt. They are both largely agrarian communities, both in Benue and Plateau. And I can tell you that the implication of this may mean hunger, may mean high food prices, may also mean that potential farmers may be afraid to go to their farms to farm. Therefore, these are consequences that we don't want to have any of them, because there is nothing good with having insecurity anywhere around the world, let alone in our dear country, Nigeria, more or less in agrarian environment, where we know that even though we know our security agencies are doing so much to protect lives and to protect property, but we must encourage them at the same time, advise that they do more in bringing down those who want to turn our nation to where people will be afraid to do things, especially those that are farming in the farming communities.
And this is, in some cases, not all even about, some of those areas have mineral resources that many would also want to talk about, like lithium and all of that. Now, in your thoughts, what sort of interventions, what sort of conversations should we be having around the table to resolve this very quickly? If the farmers can't go to the farm at this time, we know what will happen in a number of months.
Okay, so we need to analyze a few things. First of all, I can confirm to you that there are quite a number of mineral resources on the plateau and also in Benue. Yeah. I haven't had conversation with some officials a couple of months back in one of the states. I can confirm to you that resources are enormous. You know, coming down from the airport, and moving around one place or the other, you know that these mineral resources that is supposed to be blessing in economics, we say that if the people that warehouse or people that are blessings of natural resources are not careful, the same will become an economic curse. The question is, why will it be a curse? What has been naturally given? Is it because of corruption or so? The answer is partly yes, but most importantly, when you go to some environments, you know, where you have mineral resources in Nigeria, it's even discouraging for students, for learners, for children to go to school. They believe that if they can go to mining site, they will earn a living, and therefore they don't care what the future holds so long as they can live today. What therefore must be done? First, the conversation should be, can federal government still hold sway when it comes to control of mineral resources? I don't think so, because mineral resources to be ubiquitous all over Nigeria. And when we look at the strength that we have to manage, to man, and also to grow these resources, is largely a huge problem. Therefore, I think it's important for us to start looking at some collaboration of some sort, or having an environment, one that is safe, to where states, I mean state government, have more control over their own mineral resources. Then they must give what is due to the federal government in terms of remittances, in terms of royalty. Today is the state that gets royalty, and the federal government, of course, is the one that is controlling. These states, subnationals that have mineral resources are just too enormous. Where federal government has some presence, and I mean significant presence in oil and gas, we see how well they have done. Even at that, we are still losing significant amounts in oil production. According to Bureau of Statistics, we're doing about 1.4, 1.6 million barrels per day, as against 2 million we should be doing in oil production on a daily basis. So when you look at what we are losing in mineral resource, especially on mining sites, I tell you, your mind don't want to comprehend it. From the soil in Ilesha to what you have in Sokoto, then you see how gold runs all through. But how much of this is actually adding in terms of value to our economy? Then you talk about Benue, all manner of mineral resources, and here on the plateau, mineral resources again. Or should I talk about Nasarawa, that is largely based? You saw the recent attack in Benue, where it has been said by some persons, which of course I watch, that mineral resources is in Benue. The same is also in Nasarawa state. So you see, you have two states that are blessed with all manner of mineral resources, but those who wants to mine, those who you may want to call them herdsmen or whatever name, but is it really cattle that is leading to too much of killings like this? I tell you, when you see people fight in the manner that which you have seen in Nigeria, especially in full production zone, that also warehouses a lot of mineral resources, I can tell you by 90% guarantee, economic reasons is attached to it. Even when you are fighting over land, land is an economic factor. When you are fighting over mineral resources, it's an economic factor. Therefore, whatever solution federal government wants to come up with, economic solution must be at the center of it. We have been talking. I remember during President Yar'Adua, there were conversations, President Jonathan, there were conversations, President Buhari, there were conversations, and now we are having conversation. Why has this conversation not ended the crisis? A number of reasons. Why? Our conversation is how do we bring peace? But as we are bringing peace on one hand, justice must follow. The second one, I heard the president very carefully when he addressed the public when he visited Benue State. I also think that examples need to be made. Examples. These persons have been spoken to, solutions have been provided. They have said they will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but they did not. At the end of the day, this is the outcome. Then security agencies should therefore now be allowed to set examples which will serve as deterrent for others. But as we are doing that, which is a cake approach, we must also have a carrot approach, in which we, as community that promotes peace, and we can see evidently that there is peace among them, there must be some sort of reward that goes to those communities. The people, the locals in that environment, we therefore have faith that yes, we can see the presence of government, both the federal and most importantly, the state government that is closer to them. It's at that time we can say that yes, Plateau and Benue, among so many other states in North Central Nigeria, and indeed the entire Nigerian space, we have confidence that yes, we can be protected. Leaving this alone to bullet and gun in the hands of security agencies will certainly not be enough. Yes, we have competent military men, we have competent police officers, we have competent paramilitary. I by no means degrade them. I believe that they can do and they can end the crisis that is going on in different regions in Nigeria. But the people must also participate in protection of life and property. Not that they will carry gun, that's not what I mean, but also giving that support within the limits that we can give our citizens. But most importantly, find economic solution, set example to those who are erring and those who are committing crimes. And this example must not just be in one room or one corner, one station, one barrack. It must be known to others. When you are telling those who wants to join the group that this is the position of government, and perhaps if you do it, it will. I give you an example of what happened in some southeastern states many years back, where criminals were apprehended. The governor of that state, I can't remember who was governor at the time in one of the states. I can't remember the name of the gentleman who was the governor of the state. But he set example, and they did not stop there. They started demolishing house of those who were kidnapping, because kidnapping was very rampant in Southeast. As of that, this was about 10 or 15 years ago in Southeast state. That worked it helped to reduce the issue of kidnapping at the time. And I think that we can look for the solution that works within this state. Then we can start promoting some relative peace that we need. Secondly, I also think that while this is going on, it's important for us to create farm ops. And I've said it with you in the studio in Lagos, and I've also said it on other channels. Farm up is really very essential and very urgent now. What does that mean? As more people are leaving farms because of fear of insecurity in Benue and here on the plateau, it's important for us to deliberately create places. We have a lot of farmland. If you go to Benue, if you go to plateau, but we cannot man. Security agencies had the military, the Air Force, everybody we have, the police, civil defense, even hydro safety to it. They are not enough to man the perimeter of Nigeria. And by implication, let me also say that there is no country that can man all the borders and the hinterland at the same time together. It's not possible. But what is possible? We can create special zones where we have high security presence and create it as farm up. Look for what grows that we consume in Nigeria. For instance, rice, maize, cassava, beans, things that naturally grows in those areas. You can even bring processor into that environment, and what you see come out from such environment will be finished good. This will attack inflation head-on. The inflation number will drop significantly in real time, not in just managing the numbers. It will actually come down to below 10% if you can do this within the next 24 calendar months, because it doesn't really take time for some of this output to come back. Organization and coordination is what we need. Military is needed, we need them. The police is needed, the civil defense, all paramilitary agencies are needed for us to create these zones that we know that it will be practically impossible for those who want to attack us all the time and be successful at it. There are some agencies, there are some groups that government have created that is already doing this. Environment are secured in those areas. Our barracks are relatively secure. I'm not saying they've never attacked our barracks before. Our military barracks, our police barracks, and so on and so forth. NYSC bases, they are also relatively secure. Create something like that, make it purely for farming or foods that we may run out of while we are dealing with insecurity, by setting examples, also by making sure that some of the recommendations that I've made this afternoon on your show is implemented as quick as possible.
Brilliant submission, as always. Now, before I let you go, just in 2 minutes, as we wrap up this segment now, as the situation is, we're expecting another inflation figures, of course, in a number of weeks, as always. Are you thinking, it might be too quick to start to see the impact of it, but are you thinking that we would sustain this decline, particularly with food? That will be my final question.
Well, inflation is growing now at a decreasing rate, and we expect inflation to reduce to approximately less than 10%, which is the goal of Nigeria over the years. But with what is happening, it will definitely have implication on food. It might not be this month's inflation, but I know we may not escape next quarter, which is from July. By the time that comes out in August, we might not be exempted from that. We might not escape that high number, and the high number may not also go to about 30%. It might still be within 20, 24, 25% when that number is released. Because, of course, those who can farm, who are seeing some of the youth protesting that should be gainfully employed, those that should be within that sector. We are also seeing that many are afraid because the news went viral. Nobody wants to go die because they want to farm or for economic reasons. They know when they are no more alive, then the economy has been taken away from them. So that is what we're expecting. But before these numbers start coming out, what can we do this moment today? The fact that we send signal as government that we are purposeful, which of course I believe we are doing, but we need to do more, make our voice louder than the voices of those that want the nation to disintegrate, make our voices louder than those who have lost confidence in our military and security agencies, make ours that we believe that the nation can work and also believe that security agencies can combat. And the enemies of Nigeria, most importantly, they are not the Nigerian youth. The enemies of Nigeria are those who want to overrun our villages, they want to overrun our earth, simply because they either want to have their own economic reasons and they don't want to go to right way, or because of mining activity. And I can tell you, these are two major reasons driving insecurity, among so many other reasons in those regions. So we have a responsibility now to ensure that that protection comes, and it comes this moment today, so that we can reverse the potential of having a high number.
Right.
And you know that as agencies of government, we also have to be very careful to report the number promptly and as it happens. If not, confidence becomes a challenge.
Dr. Paul Alaje, our senior economist partner, SPM Professionals, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your stay in Jos and be safe. Take care. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much for having me.